What's going on, everybody? So I just finished watching the episode 4 of The Last Dance. So far, I'm a really big fan. I like seeing the in-depth things about the whole Bulls era and the whole Jordan era. But one thing I've been kind of thinking about as I was watching it was that there's a lot of underrated players that were in that era that were kind of overshadowed by Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, all those guys. One of them being John Paxson. Obviously, if you guys have seen it, he hit a few big shots, especially when Michael Jordan was on the minute restrictions. He hit that big shot, and John Paxson was kind of one of those people that allowed Jordan to gain trust in his other teammates. And so I kind of just wanted to make this video going over what I think the top 10 most underrated players are in the league right now. Before we get into it, please like, subscribe if you haven't already. Turn the bell on so you get notified whenever I post a new video. And let me know down in the comments which, if you're liking The Last Dance, what your opinions are about it. I personally, I just wish that they release all the episodes all at once so I could binge the whole entire thing like it was a Netflix special, but I don't like waiting like a week to see a new episode. I want to watch it all at once. But let's get right into it. So, starting things off, and remember this is all my opinion, I think DeJounte Murray has the number 10 spot on my list. So he's averaging 10.6 points per game, 4.1 assists, 5.8 rebounds, but that's all right. But he's also averaging 48.5% from the field, with 39.3% from three. The three-pointer's not the best, but he's just a really good overall player for the Spurs. A great player coming off the bench. When he tore his ACL, I think it was in 2017, he kind of got set back. People weren't really looking at him as much. He kind of was just getting overshadowed by everybody. But this year, I think he really started to make a comeback. He really started to prove that he was worth being in this league, that he had a spot, and that he should be more noticed. Next up, with my number 9 spot, we got my boy John Collins. Now, he is a special one because I don't think he has fully unlocked his potential yet. He got suspended for like 25 games from drugs violation, and just him being on a team with Trae Young, he kind of is getting overshadowed overall by the superstar Trae Young. He's the face of the franchise, so. But John Collins is averaging almost 22 points a game. He's averaging 10 rebounds, so he's averaging a double-double while shooting almost 60% from the field and 40% from three. The dude's a beast. He's a really, really good overall player. So I think that in the future, if the Hawks ever go to a championship, ever start making a playoff run, John Collins is going to be one of the guys that steps up and is really, really helps them out during that. Next up, from the Toronto Raptors, we got OG Anunoby. Now, he's not a very great offensive player. He's not bad. He's averaging 10.8 points a game, 5.5 rebounds, but he's more of a key player on defense. Now, kind of like Marcus Smart back there, I think he's a very quiet player on the team. He just does like the dirty work, kind of like what Dennis Rodman used to do. He wasn't always the big scorer, but he's always the defender. He's always the one guarding the best player on the opposing team. But he's averaging 1.4 steals and 0.7 blocks a game, which isn't terrible, but not great at the same time. But I think give him some time to develop now with Kawhi Leonard gone and all those guys. All you guys, Pascal Siakam and Kyle Lowry. He'll have more room and area to develop. I think he'll turn into a really, really good defensive player, and hopefully he can get even better on the offensive end. Next up, we got the Curry brother, Seth. Now, he's on a team right now with the Luka, who is honestly, I mean, the dude's amazing. I mean, the price of his cards proves it. His stats prove it. Luka Magic, it's a real deal. And the dude's just an overall beast. But then you also have Kristaps Porzingis on the same team. So all the small players like Seth Curry can kind of get overshadowed. But I mean, this guy's averaging almost 46% from three, and he's only shooting five attempts per game. I mean, the dude is a lethal scorer. He just, I mean, obviously gets overshadowed by his brother. He isn't the Curry that stands out in people's minds when you say Curry, but I really think he's a great shooter. Do I think he can kind of develop into a better player? Not necessarily. I think he kind of has already hit his peak with age and just everything like that. But I do think if the Mavericks decide to use him in more of a key aspect to their team, I think he can really boost the outcome of the record, I should say, of the Mavericks. Next up, we got the former Toronto Raptor, now the Memphis Grizzly, Jonas Valanciunas. Now, Jonas is only getting about 26 minutes a game right now. But while doing that, he's averaging 14.5 points per game, 11.1 rebounds, and all during that 1.1 blocks. So he's a solid big man for the Grizzlies. But after, I mean, the whole championship run with the Raptors and stuff last year, I kind of feel like he's not really getting the respect he deserves as a Grizzly right now. I know Pac-Man said he's not really a big fan of him. He's a big Grizzly guy, but I really think Jonas Valanciunas is a solid center for the Grizzlies. I think with Ja Morant now, with their basically being the face of the franchise, having Jonas Valanciunas at the center position, locking up everything down low, I think that's going to take them a long way. Next up, we got Terrence Ross, Orlando Magic. Now, Ross is coming off the bench for the Magic right now. I honestly, in my opinion, I think he should be the sixth man of the year this year. He's averaging, 19.3 points per game, 40 from the field, 35% from three, and averaging 85% from the line. And that's all while coming off the bench, so he's not really getting the large amount of minutes. Overall, I just think he's a really solid player. I mean, on the Magic already, you got Aaron Gordon, Mo Bamba, if he stays healthy. You have all these young, talented guys. And I think Terrence Ross is going to be a really key player on the Magic if he kind of gets more utilized, I should say. Now, Terrence Ross isn't the youngest of players. He got drafted in 2012, but he's a really solid player for the Magic. Next up, we got a Celtic. Now, this is my boy, Jaylen Brown. Now, some of you might be asking why Jaylen Brown's on this list. Well, funny you should say. JB is averaging 25 a game this year before the NBA got suspended. 6.4 rebounds, 2.2 assists. That could be better, but still averaging 1.1 steals and almost 50% from the field. I think that just all the hype over Tatum, everybody kind of forgets about JB. I mean, you got Marcus Smart back there, but mainly JB. He's a really big contributor to the Celtics offense. He's hit so many key shots for them. He always steps up in the playoffs, or at least he has for the past few years. And give him more time. I think him and Tatum will be a solid 1-2. I mean, I know you have Kemba still on the team, Gordon Hayward, all those guys, but I think Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are going to be the young core that kind of lead the Celtics to another championship. And yeah, so he's my number 4 spot on the list. Next one, we got Spencer Dinwiddie. And now he's a Brooklyn Net. With Kyrie being out, he's had a lot of stepping up he's had to do. Now Kyrie's supposed to be back next season. Now you're supposed to also have Kevin Durant. So I feel like Spencer's role as a point guard for the Nets is gonna kind of dwindle. But he's a pretty tall. I mean, he's 6'6" for a point guard. That's quite a large point guard. He can shoot. He can drive. He can pass. He's averaging 20 points a game, 6.7 assists. I mean, the dude's is solid, and I just feel like he gets slept on a lot because of the whole Nets hype right now with Kyrie and KD. And so next up, we got Buddy Hield. Now, as a King, when you think of the Kings, you probably think of like De'Aaron Fox. Me being a Celtics fan, whenever I see Buddy Hield play against the Celtics, he's always the one that we can't stop. When I went to go see a game in November last year, the dude dropped 41, and we kept guarding him. We kept putting Marcus Smart on him. Clamps were on. He just kept on scoring. Luckily, we still won that game, but just by a point. But Buddy Hield is a very slept-on shooter. He's averaging 19.8 points per game, which, I mean, isn't terrible, but it's not great at the same time. I think he could be averaging a lot more. In the next few years coming, I bet he's going to be averaging about 22 to 25 points a game, 3.1 assists, and 4.8 rebounds. But, I mean, he's shooting 43% from the field. I think he's a solid shooting guard for the Sacramento Kings. I mean, with Marvin Bagley, if he can stay healthy, De'Aaron Fox, and those three guys, a pretty young core, I think that this Kings could be definitely a contender later on. Not right now, but with the next few picks they're gonna have some high draft picks. They're gonna hopefully make some moves. They should definitely be a playoff team in the future. But now, next up, number one on the list, and in my opinion, is the most underrated player in the league. I think it's got to go to Chris Middleton. So, Chris, obviously on the Bucks this year, could have been a championship contender. I think it would have been the Lakers and the Bucks in the championship. I think that the Bucks would have taken the finals and won the chip overall. But Chris is averaging 21 points a game, 6.2 rebounds. He's shooting 50% from the field, 43% from three, and 90% from the line, which at the end of the season, which will make him the fifth player in NBA history to average 20 points a game on a 50, 40, and 90 shooting, which I think is really, really impressive. And I think he gets slept on overall as a player. And just because of the whole Giannis hype and all of that. I mean, Giannis, don't get me wrong, is an amazing player. I mean, the dude's a beast. He's not even human. But at the same time, you need, in order to win a championship, and you kind of learn this with watching The Last Dance, you need people around you. You can't just have one superstar. And I think Chris Middleton is the Scottie Pippen of Giannis. He's a very, very, very good player. Gets slept on a lot of the time. I remember I was at the first round of the playoffs a few years ago when the Celtics were playing the Bucks, and Scary Terry hit that game. At least what the Garden thought was a game-winning shot. All of a sudden, with no time on the clock from half court, Chris Middleton comes out of nowhere and just heaves up this half-court prayer and sinks it. And luckily, the Celtics still went to the championship, or still won the game, excuse me. But that game kind of, at least for my dad, he wasn't really a big believer in Chris Middleton. That game, he kind of was the game that made him actually think Chris Middleton was a real good player. And yeah, so that's the top 10 on my list. If you guys, can you guys let me know the feedback in the comments below? Maybe some video ideas, write maybe some comments on who you think is the most underrated player in the league, who you think should have been in the top 10 here. Yeah, just let me guys know your opinions on The Last Dance. Please like, comment, subscribe, and thank you guys for watching. See ya.